Hello to the chicos and the chicas. Let's have a look at round 2, game 2 from the World Cup in Goa. A lot of games to pick from. I was really struggling what to put on the menu for today. The most obvious choice perhaps would have been Hare Krishna's Queen's Sacrifice, but ultimately I decided against it, mostly because I thought that everyone is gonna cover that, so I thought that maybe I need to look somewhere else, and once again there was plenty to pick from. Ended up going with Salem's Saleh victory with the black pieces against the young American Abhimanyu Misra. So that is on the menu today. Of course, lots of exciting things, a little bit of drama. Wesley So's defeat, resignation in a drawn position is chief amongst them. But of course, Jan Nepomniachtchi, among others, getting knocked out is also a bit of an upset for sure. Anyway, it is time for us to delve into the chess bits, and so let's kick off with the game Misra against Saleh, and of course Saleh is playing here his favorite fianchetto bishop openings. He is very adept both in the King's Indian and the Grunfeld. This one is turning out to be, ironically, an in-between. We are going to now transpose into the F3 version of the Benoni. Generally speaking, by the way, King's Indian players by far and large tend to play Benoni structures against various sidelines, such as the 4 pawns attack, the Zaimish setups, and so on, so this is definitely no surprise. 92, trendy move. I'm not a very big fan. I'm still old school bishop e3 or bishop g5 if possible, but yeah, this is also totally fine. 97, knight g3, h5. This is a stock standard operation by black to send the h-pawn to tickle the knight on g3. That being said, we need to be aware of the fact that this is a double-edged concept. And the reason for that is the fact that the knight on g3 is in fact misplaced. This knight is, more or less in all cases, is either en route to f2, if allowed to play bishop, let's say, e2 castles and then knight h1, knight f2, where it's reasonably well placed, or it is en route to an even better square, which is c4, accessible via the longish route, bishop e2, knight f1, knight e3, knight c4. And so, us pushing the knight to go where you want to go is a little bit counterintuitive, but at the same time, we are gaining space on the king side, and we are definitely disrupting at least a little bit white's piece harmony. So, yeah, it is a bit of a win some, lose some scenario. Bishop e2, h4, knight f1, a6. This needs, once again, no introduction. This is the bread and butter of all Benoni positions. We want to expand with b5, and 98 times out of 100, white shuts this down with a4. Rook b8 played. We would like to go back to revisit the idea of b5, and white here played a5. To a degree, this was a novelty. This position was seen in a super GM encounter between Jan Zhishtov Duda and Anish Giri, which went with knight e3. And this is the textbook case, by the way, of how you shouldn't be impacted by the outcome of a game when you are preparing a certain line to play with one color or another. I.e., in this case, Duda went on to win this game with the white pieces, but his position was not pretty at all. Actually, sorry, after 95 he played a5, knight h5, castles, knight f4, and Anish was dominating the dark squared color complex and consequently the entire position, and so this is definitely not something that Misra wanted to repeat with the white pieces. So despite the positive outcome for white in the Duda game, he needed to look for something better, and so that was the attempt with pawn a5, which is indeed better, but I don't still think that this is sufficient to provide any advantage whatsoever. Castles. That appears to be, by the way, the first move for Saleh to think about. If you look at the clock, he's still in positive time. So I suspect that he did have the Duda Anish game in his mind as a model game to fall back onto. Castles and g4. Now this, to many, might look like a kingside attack attempt, but it certainly isn't one. g4 serves basically two purposes. Three if I wanted to be a bit cheeky, the third one being weakening the dark squares. But of course the idea is to create a bit of a grip on black's position, disallowing knight h5, and also restricting f5 breaks later on once the knight moves away. Obviously takes is out of the question after takes back. Black now loses significant space on the king side. Obviously the open h file is a bit problematic too, but that's not really the biggest of concerns. Simply it is not black's interest to release that tension on the king side. So the correct response is b5, takes, and c4. Now this is one of the coolest moves in the game, even though you are going to see some very, very cool fireworks. What on earth is cooking here with c4? Well, the logical answer to ab6 would be to retake with the rook. This is what you almost always want to do, because this allows you to attack b2, and sometimes the rook actually steps up all the way to b4, from where we can also exert pressure along the fourth rank. The problem with this, however, is that it walks headfirst into white's intention of knight e3, knight c4 with a big fat tempo. Note that knight e5 is also not playable now on account of f4. And now we are getting pushed back in every front, and this is not looking particularly pretty for black. It's still not dead lost, because there is a fair bit of latent energy, compressed energy if you will, in the black pieces. The bishop can go to d4, sometimes this knight can come around to b5 and to d4, so it's still not a knockout, but it's not looking good. So in order to prevent that, Saleh sacrifices the pawn on c4, inviting the bishop to occupy the c4 square, thus cutting off knight e3, knight c4. It also opens up the dark square diagonal toward the king, and last but not least, it also vacates, clear and sacrifice, the c5 square for the knight. Misra says, nah, I don't want to take c4 yet. I want to ensure that rook b6 doesn't come. And that is exactly when you go like, oh, right, rook b6 is not coming, eh? Yeah, try again. Always sack the exchange, says legend Grandmaster Feingold, and yeah, that's where we are at. Rook takes b6. Now, I would say that most players above 2000 wouldn't even look at taking, because it is just such an ugly position to play with white. Remember how I mentioned the dark squared color complex being weak earlier? Well, times that by 10 now. In the absence of the dark squared bishop and ours still on the board, black has so much play on the dark squares, jumping around with the knights, one knight here, the other one on e5. The bishop can be monstrously strong on this diagonal, as well as on the long diagonal. b2 needs attention, the white king is loose. It's just typically a position where you really don't need any concrete plan to justify the material investment. You just look at it and you go like, this is a train wreck of a position for black. Of course I'm sacking the exchange any day of the week. Misra didn't accept. But Saleh went like, yeah, no worries, you will accept. Now it's even worse to take, because the insertion of rook a2 and knight e5 obviously favors black. I tried a line here just to demonstrate the dangers lurking around. And I mean, this position is just a testament to how great black's position is. Barring the queen, every single white piece is on the edge of the chessboard. Absolutely zero coordination. Bishop a6 coming, rook e8 is coming. It is just, it feels like black is up 5 pieces. Whereas the reality is that we are down an exchange. This is just marvelous, marvelous, marvelous for black. So, 95, Misra went knight d2. Once again, trying to steady the boat, and rightly so, heading for c4. This is where we want to be. And so this is time to strike. Knight d3 check. Fabulous. And here was the last chance for the American to stay in this game with bishop takes d3, cd, and then knight c4. And in this case, after rook b4, queen d3, knight d7, I still prefer black, but this position is not more than just pleasant compensation for the pawn. But there is nothing imminent, no immediate targets, no immediate knockout threats. It's just a healthy, good-looking position. Bishop pair, loose pawn structure for white, slightly insecure king, and that's it. But instead, in a way, Misra went very, very greedy, playing king f1. And by greedy, what I mean is greedy in a positional sense, because he wanted to take on c4 with the knight at all costs, trying to exploit the b6 rook and the d3 knight not quite having the right sort of cooperation, seemingly. The idea, of course, was that after knight b2, he would want to play queen c2, and now if I come back to d3, then after knight c4, white has successfully carried out the perfect operation, rook hanging, knight hanging, we did. That being said, knight takes g4, as per in the game, is a very unpleasant story here to face. But yeah, better still, of course, is what was played in the game, which was knight g4 right away. Now, this is a fabulous move that exploits the king being exposed to various checks, and it marvelously combines what we often see in the Benoni, by the way, anyway, which is threats on the king side, threats in the center, and threats on the queen side. This is a really unique Benoni story. You don't see this really in the King's Indian, because in the King's Indian, when you are smashing them on the king side, it's all king side. But the Benoni allows you, because of the more open nature of the position, to spread your threats more broadly on the board. And so here, after fg, we just do the in-between rook b2, and now queen f6, queen c3 picks off a target on the other end of the board. Absolutely beautiful chess. Bishop d3 played. The key idea was that after rook b2, knight b2, the queen is hanging, and there is nothing white can do against the imminent check. And then queen takes c3, not only restoring material, but in fact putting black far ahead materially, as well as in any other way. So, yeah, bishop d3 was more or less forced. And now we are just going in with the kill, queen f6 check, and knight f3 played. If king g2, then we play c3, and this is, by the way, the justification of the whole operation for black. And after rook b2 comes the cold shower like queen d3. We don't take the rook, we take the bishop, because in doing so, we create a double attack on the still hanging rook and the bishop on e3. Queen b2, of course, would be horrible on account of bishop takes c4, and now white is up a piece for nothing at all, really. So queen d3 was the key idea in this sacrifice, and yeah, now black is falling apart. Let's say rook c2, queen e3, and now black is only an exchange down, but now the bishops are absolutely untamable beasts. h3 is more or less a mate threat. It is Carnage City. So, Misra plays knight f3 to block the check, but unfortunately, this means that now we are entering a similar scenario with piece down, but once again, the bishop pair is just vicious. And again, the pin, the poor coordination amongst the white pieces and the exposed white king means that this game is as good as over. h3 was played. I want to show you a very, very nice line to demonstrate the power of the white pieces. Queen e2 would have been refuted by check. Queen e4 takes rook a8. Now note that this move threatens with rook a6. So the bishop needs to go back. And now check. And the rook joins the party with elementary power. And after bishop f2, h3, the package has been wrapped up, ready to be sent. As we like to say it in Hungarian, in such position, the white king is completely packed in, nothing to do. King g3, bishop e5, and now we are in forced mate territory. I think it will be check, 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 and mate. for those of you who like to see a checkmate on the board, this could have been one. So yeah, instead Misra played h3 here, but now after bishop f3, queen f3, the rook enjoys again the open file, this time on the c file, and this is just, yeah, game over. The black pieces just penetrate with irresistible threats. Here, the cheeky engine, by the way, wants to just promote a pawn. That is a testament to how awful white's position is when it comes to coordination, that I have got a threat that is a formal threat, and it's borderline impossible to stop. But Saleh went just more pragmatic, played rook a3, introducing rook a1, and this could only be parried at a cost of a piece. Beautiful geometry here too, by the way, lining up the two bishops and forcingly winning one of them, and the rest was just absolute carnage city. Easy conversion by Saleh, and Misra unfortunately got knocked out of the tournament. So that was a really fun Benoni game. If you are a Benoni player or a King's Indian player, this is definitely a model game to be kept in your studies or you know, amongst your saved games, because you definitely want to revisit this absolute masterpiece. I really enjoyed this one. And stay tuned for a short, because I'm going to briefly cover the Wesley So drama where he resigned that position. I think that's worth a bit of a reflection too. But for this video, that was it, folks. Please don't forget to comment, like, do the usual things, and I will be back with more soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.